And we
Happy
are
New
live.
Year!
Happy New Year! Woo, 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 woo. Hello and welcome to SEO Meetup Melbourne. It is 2021. Hey, Saijo.
Hey Nick,
How you doing?
and hey everyone. I'm doing great.
That's
Great
great.
start. It's like 2020 never happened.
Yeah, and that's a kind of like naive energy that I want to bring to every day with this year. How was your Christmas and New Year's?
It was good. We had like a few people come over and all that. So after a really long, isolation, it was a welcome relief.
Yeah, it is.
So
It has been
yeah, that
really,
was
really
good.
nice. That's awesome.
How about
Um,
you? What did you get up to?
yeah, I was just about to say, like for our international viewers, of course, we've been in pretty strict lockdown here, and as a like nice little Christmas gift, we were allowed to all hang out with one another, and like up to like for private gatherings up to 15. So we had a really, really nice Christmas, just spending time with one another, catching up, and we've got some little ones, and I think you do too, and they just make the holiday season that more special.
Yep,
Yeah.
it was fun. Yeah, it was like that isolation towards the end was kind of hard, especially the second time around. The first time around, it was like easier, I guess, for me.
Mm.
But yeah, second one really got to me towards the end. So it was
Yeah.
good to kind of, catch up with everyone and take a break till New Year's. And then we kind of, got slapped on with more restrictions. So
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about you, but I think you know, like at the end of the year, I think everyone had been through quite a bit. So for better or worse, we all celebrated probably a little bit harder than we may have in other times. I don't know. All I know is that I'm still enjoying like a nice little beverage when I come home. So not sponsored.
that was that. Yeah, responsibly. That's good.
Drink responsibly. All right.
So hey
So
to everyone. Hope you all had a great New Year's and Christmas and all that, and excited for 2021. So, do you want to kick off today's session, Nick?
yeah, I'd really like to kind of like do a little bit of a check-in with everyone and just kind of like remind everyone about SEO Meetup Melbourne, what it's all about, and what we're really here to do. So just to be transparent, everyone, like I am one of many that organizes everything behind the scenes here. SEO Meetup Melbourne has been a wonderful initiative, all volunteer based, by a lot of digital marketing folk here in Melbourne. It is really just a resource for people, for site owners, for other digital marketers, and just really interested folk to come together to learn about what's going on the digital marketing landscape, and of course, about SEO. And if they have any questions, then there's going to be some people who will hopefully be able to answer those questions. So really within the spirit of that, that's really what we're here to continue on doing. We're not affiliated with anyone. We really just put in our time to be able to help out people. So by hitting the subscribe button, by liking the video and sharing this, or tweeting at us, or like asking us questions, really helps. Just to just to build that awareness out there, and to get a lot more of our local folk connected now with our national and international friends. So that's really, really nice. And we're also, like, while this isn't sponsored, of course, Saijo, you're the champion of Tdlr marketing. If anyone's not subscribed to your newsletter, I even like admit that I've kind of dropped the ball a little bit, opting for the Christmas holiday period to relax with friends and family, rather than read your fantastic newsletters. But it really
Oh,
is
thanks,
like
Nick.
a wonderful qualified way of figuring out like what's going on, like what is new, what has been happening. So Saijo, thank you so much for putting that resource together, consistently, and in such great detail. When did you start Tdlr marketing?
I think the initial site, like I got the domain like maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So it kind of started off, I think back when I was at Envato, we used to do like a roundup of what's happening like in our industry, I guess. So that's where it kind of started. But then over time, like even at my current agency at Supple, we kind of go through that to kind of see like, what's coming up, how it's going to impact us and our industry, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. And like I'll say that like most of the work is done by people who kind of, cover the news, like write all these articles and all that. All I do is like curate it. So my work is a lot easier compared to what they kind of put into it.
Yeah, but that being said, you also provide like a little bit of your own take on things, and with that curation, you filter out a lot of the white hot noise that maybe we don't need to be able to see every day. And you pull in resources that have been like there from Search Engine Journal, from a couple of like fantastic like SEO experts that we know, and to be able to provide like good consistent information, like people who are recognized experts in our industry, as well as troll the developer, like the Google developer blog. It really, really is like a really great curated list. I mean, again, while I say like, this isn't affiliated, like I'm a subscriber of that. And like to be a good SEO is to be constantly learning and be constantly interested in how things are changing, so that we can be able to be more informed when we're doing, basically like influencing changes around our clients' websites, and also for our own websites as well. So, I just wanted to like maybe just touch on and as we're at the very start of this year, just kind of remind everyone just of the core mission of what we do, and hopefully with a really good resource just to be able to kick off the year. With that being said, I think what's a really good way of doing this, we don't have any keynote speakers organized for today, because I think what is really good is to kind of have a good reflection on the year that's been from an SEO standpoint, of course, and look at 2021 with fresh eyes, and kind of have a really good rundown of what we can sort of focus on, what we can do with our sites that are really going to be able to like get us the good quality hockey sticks that we're all after at the end of the day. So Saijo, let's go through and run through the news that was, and the news that is hot right now.
Yeah, so I think like we can just kind of run through like some of the latest things that are like focused on SEO, I guess, and then like just maybe like a few from the last month as well. So I think like one interesting news that came out today was Google's update to the Search Console coverage report. So I think they're kind of updating it to kind of give more meaningful like labels to the issues that they find. So now when they discover a page with no content, they will kind of label it that way. And like, there are a few other kind of labels that'll come up as well. So which I think is kind of good, because like Search Console is one of the primary source of like, truth when it comes to like your site on Google. So any information that is there is like really useful, especially like, for larger sites, when there are too many pages to kind of keep track of. Like anything that comes up in Search Console, it's like, oh, Google kind of found an issue and let's get that fixed. So
yeah, and that really just came out today, or actually
yes.
Monday, January 11th this year. So yes. yeah, that's pretty much like straight out of the oven. It's still piping hot. So that is that.
Yeah, so like I usually pick out news like when I like publish stuff, it usually goes out in the Australian time. So like a lot of the things will be like 1 day ahead, like for US, because that's when it came out. It'll be on the 11th, but I publish it today, which is 12th for me. So
that makes a whole lot of sense. I've just got the blog open in front of me as well. To be honest, like I haven't even had a chance to have a look, but I don't know if you've like gone into Search Console and had a look. Have you seen the site?
I had a quick look. So one of the things that they say, which is like the indexed without content. Like I didn't see any examples in like my personal sites and all that, but I would imagine these are like issues that will come up like for large sites like with complex CMSs where like there are different like parts of it that is kind of creating a page. So there might be URLs that are just blank, but Google and some part of the site might actually reference those. So Google will pick it up. And when Google looks at the page, it's just a blank page. There's nothing on there. And I'm guessing that's what it's going to be. So if there is nothing on the page, Google will kind of flag that. So it'll still come up with a 200 header response and all that. And Google might think it's a proper page, but there is nothing on the page.
Yeah.
So I am guessing that's what it is. But till we kind of see these things like, on your side or on your client side, like we can't be 100%.
Yeah. And I guess like when I think about that, the first thing that I think of is when Yoast makes those auto-generated pages. So if you guys have got WordPress websites and you've just kind of like just turned Yoast on, there is a thing that you can like have a look at in the taxonomies. So a lot of the time, like when you're just installing Yoast, I don't know, I'm just delving into like maybe something a little bit more actionable, because like that's like an example right there of maybe like an auto-generated page that doesn't have a lot of content. It doesn't really serve any particular purpose other than just kind of to exist there as a page that maybe you can do something with later. But so if you were to go into that, you can be able to enable indexing or no index, like sections of that through the Yoast plugin. And I think that's through the search appearance, and you can look at the different content types of that. A lot of what I do, and I don't know, like go in and have a look at what this looks like, but I'm pretty sure like I index all the posts. You'll see it like with different taxonomy types. I index like the posts, the pages, and the media attachments and URLs and things like that. Sometimes like I will index the categories if they're deemed to be pretty useful, and go through and optimize those. They can be awesome. But things like tags, like the post tags, those are ones that generally speaking don't really have a lot of use. And those are ones like like low hanging fruit to just be able to no index. Yeah.
I'd like to kind of disagree there. So I think it really kind of depends on how those tags or categories are kind of set up. And like even with media attachment URLs, like there could be instances where you would want it indexed, because like back in the day, like I used to run.
I definitely said I wanted to index those.
Right, okay.
Yeah. But the tags.
I misunderstood that then. Sorry, my bad.
No, that's all right. But the post tags pages. So again, this is why I was saying like it's really important to sort of like look at what these are and how they're set up. But like where like how best to like sort of like optimize those post tag pages.
Again, it kind of depends on the site, but like generally what I would do is like, for example, in Tdlr marketing, so like when I'm kind of building out the tags for that, it will be kind of around a specific topic. So these pages are not live yet on the site, but when it goes live, it will be around specific topics. So for example, if I'm looking at Google updates, so I would call that like news about Google updates. So the title will kind of be based off that template. And similarly, if there is a post about like Google Discover, it'll kind of be like, titled news about Google Discover. And like, I might also throw in like the year and the month in there as well. So news about Google Discover, Jan 2021. and that'll kind of have like, the running list of posts that are tagged with Google Discover, for example. And I think there is value there.
Yeah, 100%. And, that's why, going through and having a look at these pages and just sort of figuring out, like what to optimize. I think it's just like from experience of looking at a lot of different websites on WordPress that have just kind of like been put up, like the Yoast plugin has been installed for the sitemap, and to be able to like have some pretty generic schema, and to be able to like inform like all the metadata around the site. Again, like we always advise, like it depends, but it really does depend. Like if the site has been set up in a way that really optimizes the use of tags around your site, particularly with content that people will be searching for in that granularity, then by all means, like that's a great opportunity to be able to optimize those pages a lot more. Optimize the title tags around it, optimize the meta descriptions, and to be able to add some more qualified content, just to be able to say like if I'm only looking for Google algorithm updates, I want to be able to see like a whole list of them. And that's a great page that will, kind of collate all of that information together. And you're exactly right. Like for...
and I think there's a question like in the comments around that same thing. So we can probably kind of take that on. And the question reads, do you always de-index the tag pages? What about writers who have been using them and always like to create tag for new post? So I think that's the kind of point that we're kind of trying to kind of get across. So there is no right and wrong answer here. Like depending on the site, you might want to index the tag pages, but like, just make sure like, you're not creating duplicate tags. For example, you don't want to tag your post SEO, search engine optimization, search, all of those things, because then you have like, similar content under all those tags. So there are like in this case, then 3 different URLs where there are basically the same information. So that wouldn't make sense. But if you're just gonna tag your thing as SEO, then like, you have like a topic cluster about SEO with that particular page. So then I see value there.
Yeah,
and that's not the only thing. You would want to like, make sure there are enough internal links going to those pages. You would want to make sure that it kind of links out to the relevant pages and all the other basic SEO things that you would do.
Yes, and because
hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. And of course, like because it collates all of those different tagged content pages, that kind of acts as its own little category page. And of course, like when we're able to optimize those that are collating all that different content together, then absolutely. I also think, what are your thoughts around no indexing or indexing like taxonomy pages? So like the post formats of the world, and say for example, I'm just trying to think of any others. No, let's go and have a quick chat about the post format, because I think that's the other one other than the tag pages that are usually in there.
So for me, like it kind of comes down to like, the basic architecture of the site, how you kind of, have thought about like how you're going to display all this information that you have on the site. So if you kind of create like, I don't know, like a good example might be like definitions for terms. And if that is kind of sitting under custom post type, you might want to get those indexed, right? Like, so that is like a one example, I guess, where you would kind of want that index because it's a custom like definition that you kind of write for like terms that people in the industry might be looking for. So in that case, yes.
Yeah. So that's the post formats are like, those kind of like format based archives and things like that, and whether or not like to show them in the search results. Again, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of...
specifically talking about like, the date format ones, like, the dates and the author, that sort of thing, or custom post types?
I'm talking about the post underscore formats, all those auto-generated.
On WordPress?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not 100% on what they are,
Yeah.
so I can't really. Yeah.
Yeah. These are all the auto-generated pages that are created by Yoast. So
Okay.
they kind of like add extra bit of bulk. So again, just going through, have a look at what these pages generated will be. You'll see them in the sitemap. If you're ever curious, you can be able to always like see what they look like and see the quality of the page and be able to think like, is there something that I want to serve up to my users?
Okay.
It's going to be useful. Again, that's why, like, when looking to index or no index, it always comes with a strong caveat. Have a look at what you're wanting to do. Does it fit in with your content strategy? And is it worth like putting the effort into optimize this, or is this worth maybe potentially no indexing those out of your site? So again, like I usually look at the post underscore tag pages and of course the post underscore format pages as ones that are usually the usual suspects that get no indexed. But everyone's got
Okay.
different opinions of these.
Yeah. So the thing is, like, I haven't used Yoast in a while. I've been using Rank Math for most of my sites, so I'm not really sure what those specific pages are that Yoast is creating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah, so these are really specific to the Yoast plugin.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
So
Well,
I
we
think
kind of
that
went on a
is
bit of a
another
tangent there.
question. Yeah. So I think there's one more question we might. Would you rather create a category called SEO and redirect tag SEO to it? So it's kind of very hard to kind of answer that because, like, one, like, I don't really see the value in creating, like, a category called SEO and then another tag called SEO and redirecting it. So not really sure why you would kind of want to do that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
I
I
wouldn't
think
personally kind of recommend it.
Yeah, I think again this pertains to the Yoast plugin. So again, with the structure that they create out, like Fitzera sort of like points out here, the URL structure of these are /tag / like say SEO, if that's a tag that is marked up with the content on their website. So again, this is sort of where I look at like I generally like to make pages out of my own out of my own design, like would rather have like a /SEO and then / and then maybe like either subdirectory subdirectory a subcategory.
Subfolder.
Yes, whatever one would like to call it, and give some more qualified search with that, pertaining just to SEO. These are again like auto-generated pages that Yoast likes to create / tag, and with all the different tag types around your different content. Again. Fitzera, have a look at the quality of that content. Is this something that you're wanting to optimize? Otherwise, like I would probably just kind of stick with having like my clean URL structure, having like / SEO, and then maybe like the blog topic to be able to spin off that, and kind of going down that route rather than using Yoast's own imposed structure. But that's, it's down to personal preference. It's what you'd like to do with your website. Some people like to use it. Others like to no index that. I know that Peter Mead and I sort of, have talked at length about the wonderful things that Yoast does. Yoast is a fantastic plugin and one of the most widely downloaded plugins in the world, and WordPress is like 30% of the web. So these are just like the decisions that we as site owners and SEOs get to have fun with. But I think we went on a bit of a tangent. Yeah, I think that hopefully that answers that question. So I wouldn't bother with the tag pages for me, but again, have a look at the page, and if you'd like, tweet at us afterwards. But yeah, so index coverage, data improvements to Search Console. I think we've fairly covered off. Shall we get on to the next one out of the Tdlr marketing list?
Yes. Do you want to take on the next one, or do you want me to kind of go through those?
Well, I'm very, very lucky, everyone. So I got shown the newsletter before it's going to be launched, and what a wonderful opportunity that we get, and mostly me. I get to see what's happening and be able to discuss this with everybody. The next one that is in the newsletter that will be released was from Search Engine Lands. Google launches subtopics ranked in mid-November. So Google says, and I'll open this up a little bit more, Google said in October that subtopic rankings are neural nets to understand subtopics around an interest, which helps deliver a greater diversity of content when you search for something broad, which that's awesome. But what does that actually mean? The good thing about that is they gave an example. If you search for home exercise equipment, we can now understand relevant subtopics such as budget equipment, premium picks, or small space ideas, and show a wider range of content for you on search results pages. Saijo, I think because you've already explored this, what are your thoughts on this subtopics?
So, there are two possible, things that I think it can happen, I guess. One is what they're trying to say is when you search for something, they will try to take into account the subtopics that they think are relevant to that particular search query and kind of surface that within that 10 blue links, I guess. So for example, if you search for exercise equipment in their example, they will try to put in a few entries that are premium exercise equipment, few entries that are home exercise equipment and all that. So I think that's what they're trying to get at. And the second possible thing that could probably happen is I think once COVID hit, they started showing this faceted search navigation. So which has kind of expanded into a few other verticals as well. So when you search for something on the left-hand side, you get filterable tabs, I guess, or links that you can click on, which changes the query. So it started with COVID, but then after that, some head terms like calculators and stuff like that used to show this. So when you search for mortgage, you will get mortgage, calculators, mortgage rates, and few things like that. So that could be another way that they kind of surface this information. So at the moment, I'm not 100% how they will kind of go ahead, but it might be, I'm guessing, one of these two.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that they said in that article was that I think is interesting is saying that subtopics don't change the look of search results. So that to me sort of says and again, this article mentions it about passage indexing and ranking changes. So this is something that, of course, has rolled out. I think passage-based indexing affects 7% of search queries, in the SERP, and this is where if they will actually show say a paragraph of content and basically just bold out different semantic searches, which maybe is a little bit more about what that's like. So of course, if you've got any on the SERP kind of SEO tools, you kind of already be adept with looking at different semantic search. And what I mean by semantic, is subtopics or related queries to your primary keyword, that Google's getting a little bit more better at being able to basically just consider that when it's trying to qualify content. So I think, and it's so interesting that all of this is happening because with neural language, natural language processing, and how Google, BERT and Smith are now taking in a lot more queries across the web. This to me is, and I'm sort of just pulling my thoughts together at the moment. This to me is just sort of saying they're understanding content across the web a lot better. They're trying to go through and qualify information that is from expertise sources. Like we've seen this a lot with Google EAT being rolled out. And of course, when it comes to just understanding like how things are related, they're actually wanting to show searches and therefore, SEOs alike, what this is looking like in the SERP. So again, having subtopics actually like show up a lot more will be a really interesting way of considering how we're optimizing our content. Sorry, I wanted a bit of a tangent there.
Yeah. So again, like, till we kind of see more examples, like I wouldn't know how to go about, like, even thinking about optimizing for it. So one thing will be like from the example that they've given, it's like from what I've known, like you can only rank for one page on, like, in most cases, unless you're Pinterest probably. So so you can try to optimize your content with the subtopics that you think Google is picking up. That is one possible thing that I would look at, which I think most people will be looking at doing anyways.
I wonder if this is going to sort of prelude to like maybe more weight on like, so like wrap-up posts that really give the user like really detailed qualified information across the broad range of key questions that people have around different topics. We've seen like wrap-up posts and evergreen content really become like very, very popular over the last few years. And I don't know, like serving content in a different manner with diversified content where you'll have video content and things like that. Maybe that this is sort of like where if Google can see like when I'm looking for, say, like I'm trying to like find a topic out like what is a good beer. I'll use this because I do have a beer next to me. A lot of people might see like when people are trying to find like good, like what is a good beer, they might be looking for beer brands. So they might look at different comparative posts where, okay, like I'll see the top most popular beer brands and like how do they compare, like what are the different qualities, like what are the different like malts and hops. Again, I'm just trying to like pull a topic kind of out of my butt as a bit of like a way to sort of qualify this. But again, like you said, like it will be interesting to see what happens and what we can see as this will be rolled out.
Yeah. So the basic way that I kind of look at it is like, say, like with the example that they've given, right? So if the topic is home exercise equipment, like right now there might be a site that's ranking for that particular term. They might have a different post for like home exercise equipment and different post for budget exercise equipment. And they might be ranking like the top 3 spots for each of those different queries. Now, if Google is trying to kind of rank a mix of these, like they'll probably rank just one for like, for if you search for like home exercise equipment, you'll still kind of rank for that main term. But the other 2 pages, I really don't think they will show up for that term, like home exercise equipment. But when you kind of go to like budget exercise equipment, then their individual posts can still rank there. Does that make sense? So what I'm trying to say is site A that has like all 3 topics, it will only rank once for any given query. So for each of those query, it can still rank in one spot. I don't think that is really going to change, because if that changes, then like, all the bigger sites will start to rank multiple times on the page because it's kind of trying to satisfy these different intents.
Yeah.
So in a basic sense, that's how I think about it. But again, like, once this starts rolling out, we'll kind of understand a bit better on how this kind of works.
It's going to be really, really fun to keep tabs on that.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'll let well, maybe we can do like one me, one you, one me, one you, and then until we've reached the end of the fantastic newsletter.
This kind of goes on. So I think right now it has a year's worth of data, so it'll kind of keep going. So we'll kind of go through a few and then go into our predictions for 2021 or something.
Awesome.
Cool. So you want to take the next one? Oh, no, I'll take the next one, right?
Yeah.
Right. So this one is from it's about JavaScript video. No. Okay. So it's basically a video from Google that talks about why it's a bad idea to try to improve core web vital scores by blocking certain countries. So basically somebody asked, like, I think it was Martin Split, if if you find that like certain countries have a really slow connection, like, is there any advantage in terms of like your core web vital score by just blocking those countries? So in theory, what they're trying to do is like your core web vital scores would go up, because what it does is it looks at the usage data from Chrome and kind of say like this page is loading in X seconds, for example. And if you're only showing the page to countries that have like a faster internet connection, your score would be higher. So, right. So in theory, that's what they're trying to do, I guess. So Martin kind of goes ahead and says that is a really bad idea, because like if you block them, they might use like a VPN to access the service anyways, which will probably make it a lot slower and stuff like that. So I think this is like, I don't think there is any real value in trying it out, because you can't really control who sees your pages, because like people can use VPNs and all those different things. So yeah.
That's so fascinating. Like, of course, we can see that sort of information from GA data, but I've never really thought like, okay, like we're having a particularly bad experience here. Let's just block it all. I'm fascinated. Like, sorry. Did they say they actually tested this? Like,
nah, like Core Web Vitals is not out yet, right? So I don't know. Like, there's no real way to test it. Because from what I know, like the crux data which they're using for Core Web Vitals is like a huge chunk of data that Google has from people who actually use Chrome to browse websites. And they kind of say like, the experience for different users on like, from different locations, different browsers, browser versions, different browser sizes, all those different things, and they try to aggregate all that and say this particular page has this experience score. They might have a number for it, and so it's trying to game that. But like the thing is, like, you really don't have control over how people kind of access that information. So I'm not really sure how you can kind of try to manipulate that score, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think, and just going back, crux for everyone out there is like the Chrome user experience report. It's where like, Google's actually gathering like real data for this. If you want to know a lot more about this, I might just give a shout out to my really good friend, Peter Machinkovich, who did a fantastic podcast with Kate Toon, where they go into like a lot of great depth breaking down this sort of stuff. But we can see Core Web Vitals in our Search Console reports at the moment, and to kind of like give us a little bit of an indicator of whether or not it's performing well or not. But I just think it's fascinating that like someone's just like, you know what, like let's just block it and see what happens.
I like the way they think.
Yeah. I kind of wish that they just did it just to see what would happen, and then just sort of like say, well, actually, this was my result. It's just interesting. But it's good that Martin Split has provided a little bit more of an information about that.
Yeah. So another thing that you could probably try is like Core Web Vitals. It's not just related to pages that you have in like search, right? So your no index pages, all those things kind of impact that. So if you really want to, improve the score, create a ton of no index pages with no content on there. Those pages will load up super quick and your score would go up theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, we can. I mean, yeah, we can manipulate scores for the fun of just being able to have the good scores, but from an SEO perspective, the quality.
Yeah, so I was just being sarcastic that don't actually do that, but yeah.
Oh, that's fun. I'm just imagining people being like, okay, cool. So I just delete everything and I've got a great score and I'll be fine. Yeah. So if anyone doesn't really know what Core Web Vitals are, gosh, do you remember when they rolled that out? It was like mid-year last
Core
year.
Web Vitals? I could tell you.
When they actually said when it was, because it will be while you're searching for that. Core Web Vitals will be a ranking signal from like that. They like list it as like a page experience signal, and there's like three main things that they're really going after: the largest contentful paint, or LCP, FID, the first input delay, the CLS, cumulative layout shift. I'm not going to go through and define that. There's plenty of wonderful resources out there that just like go through and define it. When did it come out? When did they announce it? Sorry?
They announced it will be a ranking factor back in May.
Back
29th
in May.
of May.
Yeah. 29th of May. Awesome. Well, I don't know about you, but some of the things that I've sort of like, like things that you can actually do about Core Web Vitals. Have you like worked on some of your sites with improving these scores yet?
Yeah, some of them. But the thing is, like, like I'm not 100% on how big of a, like, difference this will make. So, like, HTTPS, right? So when it came out, that was like, they drummed it up saying that is going to be a ranking factor. But like, to tell you the truth, in real, like, I don't actually see much of an impact. So a lot of people migrated. I'm not saying like, HTTPS is bad and you shouldn't do it or anything like that, but still, like, as a ranking factor, it was pretty poor, I would say. So yeah, again, like Core Web Vitals, we'll need to kind of see how it kind of impacts ranking. Like, if there is any considerable impact, then it kind of, helps to kind of pay that extra attention to it. Otherwise, like if you're doing a good job, you obviously want to keep your site fast and all that. So you would still do that anyways. But I wouldn't put 100% effort into it till I kind of see like there is a noticeable difference. Because like a lot of the times what you'll do is like you will have a site, you'll kind of do the quick fixes, you get it fast. But then like, all those, like to go from that score 80 to 90, that is a lot of work. Maybe it's not worth that effort from an SEO point of view. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe this is helpful to to folks out there, wondering about site speed, and of course like Core Web Vitals as part of like the SEO strategy. This is something that as everyone kind of knows, like SEO is competitive, and when you've sort of like fix a lot of the glaring technical issues on your site, when you've optimized your content and you're really wanting to like go after and edge out your competition, like this is where I think like some of those like extra bit of work will be able to really just continue to push that capability a lot further. The times in which I've seen page speed to really be a ranking factor is when it's totally SHIT, as like my nice family would spell out when instead of like actually curse. So I've seen it where I had an e-commerce client, for instance, like update their carts and how the products, if you were to convert on that and how that would be transferred. Let's just make it pretty top level and pretty simple and say that they coded it in a way that each one of the product pages had a load time of 2+ minutes. Yikes. Well, the impact of that was, yes, it was a ranking factor because basically it just timed out. They just give up and they'd be like, what am I even trying to, I can't load this. And if this is going to be served to users, particularly with e-commerce, particularly as, there is sensitive data and information with credit cards and things like that being processed on their site. Well, you know what? Goodbye. This is where I think, we always have to remember that when we're talking about this sort of stuff, have it in the context that it doesn't go ahead of maybe say a broken internal link, or even to optimize your title tags on your key pages. This is if you put it into GT metrics or to webpage.org or to even Google PageSpeed Insights, and you have a pretty dismal score across all three, or just the two of those, then that maybe give you a bit of an idea of thinking oh, maybe I need to have a chat with my developer about this. So this I won't keep going on too long about this, but really quickly, there's some really quick things you need to know. For first indicators for a user that is looking at the appearance of above the fold content. This is where the largest contentful page, the LCP, does kind of come into context. So maybe we can go through preload key resources to speed up visual load times on that. So that's essentially just inspecting the page, and maybe Chrome Dev Tools, and it'll be shown in that little nice little waterfall chart. If there is one beyond that line that is loading, then maybe again have a chat with your developer about whether that's something that you can optimize. Going through and maybe looking at with the cumulative layout shift, again, a lot of this is a little bit dubious. I don't know how much this is going to have influence. It's actually a pretty difficult thing to measure, because this is kind of pertains to the UX that maybe we all would have seen with different errors, shifting around the page. Again, I noticed that in general, sometimes we'll have that where it's hard to click away from an ad. It's kind of annoying. So reserving space for images and embedding that to load into is maybe something that one should consider. Just another one, optimizing your images and things like that. That's always a nice little low-hanging fruit to be able to go and be able to do. So again, have a chat with an SEO, have a chat with your developer. That'd be really good. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I think you're clicking, and I'm really sorry. That's translating into the thing. Yeah, I think the sensitivity on your new equipment, which is working really nicely, is just a little bit.
Sorry about that.
It's translating a bit. Oh, that's all good. But yeah, sorry, I won't waffle too much.
No, I was just looking at something Everhard had a question. So I just wanted to confirm something, which is why I was kind of clicking around trying to find it. So his question was, some of the scores are somewhat influenced by user's device. Also, so poor device means poor score. So maybe optimizing for your target clientele device type is something that's recommended, I guess. So I couldn't find what I was looking for basically, but I'm not 100% if Google has said this, but Core Web Vitals, they might be only looking at mobile devices to kind of, get that score, from what I understand. Again, don't quote me on this, I think. So you might want to pay more attention towards that. And the score that, they're referring to, that is kind of, an aggregated score on what Chrome has collected from their user base. So you can't really control that, like we said earlier. So like you can try to control it for the best experience. Like you could look at analytics and say like, most of my users are like from this device. So let's try to optimize for that. That will probably be a good strategy. But like, I don't think you can optimize for every single device out there and try to get that score up. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's too hard to optimize for every device. Actually, Peter Machinkovich, who I gave a shout out earlier, who has a really great podcast with Kate Tood, he says like when Google tests speeds for mobile, they stimulate network connectivity and throw a CPU using Lantern. Basically, you have to optimize for a 2016 mid-tier smartphone. Lantern. From my memory, and again, like I don't know too much about this. Peter goes into a lot more detail than I ever could on that fantastic podcast. If you wanted just to look at like optimizing for one device or like what your main device is. Oh, your video's gone off, Saijo. If you want to, there we are. We can see your lovely face again.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I think like on the audience tab in your Google Analytics, if you have a look at say like you can actually see the devices and like see what if you click onto like the mobiles, you can actually see what kind of devices at scale most of your users will use. So if you're say using like a 2016 mid-tier smartphone, and that's what all of your users optimize for, then maybe it might not be a bad idea just to see what the best experience for that is from a development sense. Again, developers will be able to like give you a lot more of an idea of what this means, but that could be maybe a good place to start.
Just want to touch on this particular comment as well. Moses MN videos, I think. The new GT matrix is scary for me to check. It shows all the lighthouse signals, making better website never ends. So, like, how I what I kind of think about, like, when looking at this, like, page speed score and all that is, it's never going to be at 100%. And, like, the best that you can hope for is try to get a reasonably fast website. If your competition is all like, miles ahead of you, then I would probably worry about it a bit. Otherwise, like, it's don't try to get that 100 score. It's like never really going to happen unless you kind of strip out all CSS and JavaScript from your page or something like that.
A good example of that is like, yeah, a good example, like Google, actual just like Google tags and like Google Analytics, like Google fonts. Oh my gosh. Like, those can be like some of the heaviest loading things on your site. Google Tag Manager even. So, it's, again, like engage with your developer. Yeah. Making better the website never ends. Yep. That's pretty much the life of an SEO.
Yeah. So here is like, something that happened recently. Like a client of ours, like, like when we were looking at analytics, it wasn't like, getting data in for a couple of weeks. So when we looked at it, like they added like a delay for analytics because they want to get page speed scores up.
Oh no.
So they were firing analytics after a few seconds or something like that. So yeah.
Well, yeah, they're bounce rate.
Yeah. So yeah. So like it's just weird. So people go to all these links to kind of get your page speed score up, but they kind of lose sight of like, why they have a website in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't worry too much about it. I don't think like, it will be a factor that impacts your ranking, like, how like a links or content would. It will still be a fact, like the ranking factor, but the impact that it has will be very minimal, I think.
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking at the wonderful list that you sent me, and we've got like an AI that generates images from just a description. I think that's fascinating, but I have no idea about that. Do you mind taking this one, and I'll talk about JavaScript libraries?
Yeah, so this one is like Naba like library from OpenAI. So I'm guessing most of you would have heard about GDP3. So it's like a text generation algorithm. So basically, you can kind of give it some sample input, and it will kind of like create like human written text almost. So in some cases, like better than what most humans can write. So this is like an image version of that. So you can kind of tell it to kind of create images based on what you want, and it will actually create those images. So it's not like finding images and serving it. It's actually generating those images. So it's like, you can throw this and GDP3 and run a very successful blog just by, giving it a topic and say, keep on writing content. So we'll kind of create an image, write this great story about it, and all that. So
yeah, and I literally just chucked into Google an article written by GPT-3. Sorry. Oh, it's been a long day. And of course, The Guardian comes up with like, a robot wrote this article. Are you scared yet, humans? And then underneath that, a human wrote this article. You shouldn't be scared of GPT-3. Again, by The Guardian as well. I'm so fascinated with how machine learning is understanding and I mean, like Jason FC, you kind of like put it there, like it is absolutely insane. Like SEO automation, whether or not it will be here or not, I imagine. And like, I'd love to know what you think about this, Saijo, as tracking things on the web. Also, if you hear a lot of noise in the background, Poppy, my dog, is really, really excited that my partner's just come home from work. So apologies if there's any really excited dog noises. But yeah, SEO automation is fascinating, and it's just like, I think from a content perspective, I'm thinking more about that side of things, because I think if Google is understanding a lot more about how to qualify content, why can we not use something like GDP3 to be able to utilize the BERT algorithm, to be able to utilize the Smith algorithm, which is open source and available to all of us, to be able to reverse engineer that, to do that. I know that there's some fantastic humans out there. Andrea Volpini from WordLift plugin for that is an amazing resource for schema that actually is already doing something like this, which just blows my mind when he showed me. But what are your thoughts on SEO automation in the future there?
So SEO automation can mean a lot of things, right? So in terms of like GDP3 and like the content side of things, I think like the problem with something like that would be like, right now, like this is cutting edge, it's great. But if you kind of go down this path, like, you kind of like all this is kind of trained on some model, right? So at the end of the day, all of those content that gets created will kind of fit that certain like, pattern, I guess. So like, I don't know if that's a good thing, like, for the web.
Yeah, that's awesome, because the information that the parameters that the human sets is what the machine learning will go through and basically learn and adapt to. So as long as maybe like the initial root logic of what those conditions and parameters and like maybe even like if statements are sort of there, it's only really as intelligent as that. Is that kind of what you mean to say?
Yeah, like somewhat. So the analogy that I would probably use is, how when Bootstrap came out, like, it was great, right? Like, it made making websites, like, great. But like the end of the day, like all websites started to look similar. like it's got that standard, like, hero section, like 3 services, like, so it's kind of like that, like, you kind of take out the creativity out of these things. And like, there is, like, it kind of makes life a lot easier, and like, jobs a lot easier, I guess, to an extent. But you kind of lose out a bit of, like, that creative element that kind of goes into these things, which, like, I think is important.
Yeah,
So for
absolutely.
me, like, it's kind of finding that middle line and kind of using it. So that's where I think that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I've applied for like access to the GDP3 API, still in the waiting list. Kind of sucks because, like, people who have access to it can already start building all these cool stuff, and those who don't have access will just kind of have to sit and wait.
Yeah, because we'll just have to sit and wait. I'm seeing a comment here from Danny. Oh, you mean like WordPress is today?
So WordPress, you can build out, like, TLDR marketing is built on WordPress, but I'd like to think it's not like, a traditional like WordPress site. So WordPress is just like a canvas that you can use to kind of create anything. So you can design it to look any way that you want it to look like. But I kind of get your point. Like, there are themes that are very similar that you can buy. So a lot of the sites will look similar.
Forever on the waiting list.
I know your pain.
Yeah. All right. We'll get to the next one. So this one is where Google's Lighthouse is now recommending JavaScript library alternates, and this is kind of one that I like because I don't know about like everyone out there in the SEO world right now, but tackling side migrations, and a lot of my clients are asking a lot more questions about what's going on with their sites, and of course. With that, we kind of need to look at the technology stack and how things are being built and how things are being coded out. And of course, Lighthouse is trying to make that a lot better from that and Chrome DevTools, and now actually saying like, hey, you might be serving like an old version of JavaScript that can lead to poor performance. Maybe you should look at like a different framework and functionally equivalent libraries to basically reduce that like bundle size, or like the overall the size of the library that needs to go through and be able to be processed and passed to be able to be indexed after it's been crawled. So that's a really, really interesting one. I've already been seeing that. Have you had a bit of a play around with that, Saijo?
I saw the news. Like, one thing that I kind of worry about with something like this is, like, Google might give you recommendations based on, like, whichever partner they've kind of like partnered with, and will kind of say, instead of like library X, you can choose library Y. But at the end of the day, there might be a reason why library X was used in the first place. So definitely get your developers involved, and just don't go running about saying like, oh, Google recommended B, let's kind of, go with that, remove the old one, because there could be real, like, reasons why framework A was selected over B. So
Yeah.
definitely get the developers or people who kind of work on those platforms involved.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what you're saying, it really speaks to the compatibility of what your your website was maybe originally built with, and what it could kind of handle. So, like a lot of, if you haven't been updating your plugins, and I definitely recommend that you should within with an assist from a good developer to be able to help manage that. Some of those like might need fallbacks for like older technology, or even older browsers. Again, like whenever I'm thinking about like JavaScript frameworks, I'm glad that Peter Machinkovich is in the chat here because I know he's got a lot of really great opinions about jQuery as like jQuery in array and jQuery each, and his thoughts about like whether or not like whether or not like one should upgrade and things like that. Like I will like. He's a developer and also just happens to be an SEO. So I love to pick his brain about that. But it's kind of nice that Lighthouse is at least giving people a little bit more qualified information. There's a lot of things that if one is looking to upgrade their website, I think it's kind of like a bit of a way to give more of an indication that, hey, you might be using some outdated technology here that's maybe this browser is maybe not supporting anymore, depending again, like I don't know how old the site is or like how it's been built, but like it could lead to that. So that's very I think it's cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely good that they kind of give you that recommendation, and it's just that like when you kind of go in and kind of recommend this like as a task to be completed from an SEO point of view, just like think about all the other aspects as well. That's the only thing. So definitely great that Google is kind of surfacing this. That is cool. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Peter's sort of come to the fold and added like since 2015 and adoption of ES6, a lot of libraries are outdated since functionality can be done in native modern JavaScript. Again, like if you want to talk to him more about that, he is available on LinkedIn and Twitter. So Peter Machinkovich, my good friend. All right, the next one, I'll move on from that one. This one's for you, mate.
Okay, so Search Pilot is like an A/B testing like platform. So they run these A/B tests from time to time, and in this particular test, they were talking about like how they ran a test for a web page with no like email sign up, and an alternate one where they had like a two-step email sign up. So the first one was a very small a pop-up that came up after after an interval, like once somebody landed on the page, and then when you click on it, it brought up like a bigger model which asked for more information. So, and what they were trying to do was, I think, the initial pop-up was very small, so it wasn't really like overpowering the page and all that. So technically it should be within Google's like guidelines of not impacting the interstitial penalty that they had, I guess. So the first one was really small. People opted to it, and then it kind of showed you the bigger model window. So even with this, they kind of saw a 4% drop in organic traffic. So they are from this particular test proved that having that pop-up can impact your organic traffic.
Yeah, right.
That said, if you are a website that kind of creates a lot of content and you kind of run ads or want to grab that visitor's email, pop-up are by far the best way to kind of still do that. So I would still have that. I see that and I can understand that there's a small dip in organic traffic, but having that email address is much more valuable, I think, at least for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So it sort of popped up and showed like a small little frame of
At the
information.
start?
Yeah, and then
when a user interacted with it, it kind of showed you the bigger one. So in theory, Google wouldn't see the bigger one because Google doesn't interact with those things. So it would have seen the smaller one, and that still had an impact. So again, this is a very limited test. You might want to run your own test to kind of see how it kind of impacts you. But
was that
in most cases, collecting email is I would say is as a marketer, that is a huge step that you should kind of do. So don't
I
just stop your pop-ups just because of this one test.
yeah.
That's I think what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think and again, like I can't help but think back to like our earlier thing on core web vitals, where it's talking specifically about like the cumulative layout shift, and like this again like is like that bit of UX that is a little bit like dubious to be able to like define what the impact of that will be. But I think again, if someone is clicking on that and like while it sort of says like in its core definition of that, if it's like doing a layout shift or it's popping up to have like more information of that, then like this is maybe where Google sort of seeing that as not being like the best user experience, or at least what it's recommending to be able to like show to users, because I would imagine that it's trying to like say like while pop-ups aren't like inherently bad, if they sort of force the user to interact with that and then serve them more content without being able to like toggle between like around a menu and things like that, or be able to like help the user. I don't know. Again, like this is something that we'll be able to see a lot more as time rolls out. But that's probably where it's saying like this isn't the best performance of what we're wanting to actually rank. So that's really, really interesting. I'm just thinking as well, in the test, does it say anything about changing the URL? I've seen in some instances where it will kind of be coded in a way that it will just change the URL and look like a new page, but essentially like the layout and the format of it looks very, very much like a pop-up.
Okay, so I don't think they've changed the URL. So I don't think they have specified if they have. I don't think they would have, because then it's not really like a valid SEO test in that case, because you're kind of doing that on a completely different URL.
Yeah. That's really, really fascinating. Have you ever worked with something like that?
Yeah, so like most of my sites would have like a pop-up. Like I don't think TLDR marketing
Yeah.
has, but yeah, so like I've got like other sites where like they are by far like like the better like conversion. Like you get better conversion from them. So people sign up to the pop-up compared to like the traditional like in content kind of blocks and all for that. At the top of my head,
Yeah.
I don't remember like what the conversion rates are, but it's way higher, like probably 3x higher.
3x higher.
Yeah,
That's, I mean,
more
that's
than that probably, but like at least 3x.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so we'll go on
And
to the
so
next.
there are multiple ways to go about it. So you don't have to like show the pop-up immediately as a site. Like when people land on the site, for most of mine it's on exit intent. So when people are kind of trying to navigate away from the page on desktop, that's when it kind of pops up most of the time. On mobile it's a bit tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I might, so I'll go to the next one. I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing like this fantastic pie chart that's showing content that's been shown in Google Discover. Now, I really like to know, like, how many people have been able to see some success in Google Discover. When I've seen this happen, for us here at Studio Hawk, it's content that it will show up in Discover, and we'll get like some wonderful, tremendous spikes, and sometimes I can say they're based on like how how well the content has been written, but at the same time, like this this tweet that you're showcasing is actually analyzing data that's showing like content that is landing in Discover that's about 70 seconds old, and also old content that's 710 years old. Days old. 710 years. Oh my god, that doesn't
Yeah.
exist. But that's super fascinating because it's like, well, how is Google qualifying what should be shown? Like, Discover's kind of, from my understanding, is that like have a lot of news content that is kind of like information, like people are wanting to be able to see. But what again, like Saijo, what's your experience of Google Discover?
So with Discover, like I don't think it's just news. So there are specific topics that you can kind of be interested in, right? So you can subscribe to these topics and you kind of get content from those topics. So it's definitely not just news. So you could be interested in sports and like card games or whatever, and they will surface content that's not just new. Like they might kind of surface a content that did well, like maybe, and it was like a couple of months old maybe, and they will still kind of surface that. Because like I've kind of subscribed to topics like newsletter and all that, and I often get like the 10 best marketing newsletter, the 10 best newsletter tips that are a few months old, sometimes a year old, and all that. They still kind of surface that. So it's a different algorithm completely. So it's kind of hard to understand how it exactly works, but they kind of surface a lot of different things in there, and doesn't have to be like recently published or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it kind of presents like it presents a new challenge. I think so. I work with a publication that we're sort of seeing this. Out of all our clients, like they get probably the most that pop up around with Google Discover. So that's why the news and news articles were the ones that kind of were on my mind because of that. But of course, there are a lot of different types of ones. Like, what kind of like contents do you see get populated? Like, what kinds of content?
Like I think listicles can have like some sort of preferential treatment. I think the only reason why I say this is because I've got a site where it kind of features like code snippets, right? And there was one post, like it has got about 1,000+ posts on the site, and there is one single post that was a listicle. Like it was like an affiliate post with 10 themes that you can look at or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was the only post on that site that ever got into Discover. It does these almost daily kind of feed on code snippet for X, code snippet for Y, that sort of thing. And then there was this one post which is like the 10 best themes. And
that kind of sounds like to me like that's a wrap up content. That's a site that's gone through, that's done the research, that's tried to give good qualified information about what what users should do. So is this just like trying to work backwards? Is your client sort of seen as an authoritative kind of expert in for website things?
It does reasonably well for terms like button design, accordion designs, like accordion inspiration, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it does reasonably well. But yeah, so it was for me, the thing was the only post that I ever got on there was this particular type, which was like a listicle. So listicles may have a preferential treatment in there. And again, this was 6 months ago. So things change as well. So I don't know if that is still applicable now.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. I think the lot of the things that I've been seeing. So I've got a client that has paywall gated content, and they've also got free content. So it's kind of like a group that owns a couple of sites, and we sort of manage the SEO of all of their sites for them. And this is something that we were seeing as it's sort of popping up in Search Console, looking at these pieces. These are ones that have found some success because the author of those is seen as an expert of her niche, and she writes like really great informative like opinion pieces around like about finance and things that she's sort of like very much known for in to be able to talk about. So like it's interesting because like while I think like, you know, we're working through and fixing up a lot of the technical SEO of that, like it was really interesting that it still was able to pop up, because I think they had a couple of like posts that didn't do as well, that was a little bit dubious around the author of those. But again, like news and you know, because they do talk about the finance sector, this pertains to a lot of the EAT kind of you know, that we're wanting to optimize for these days. And for anyone who's like, EAT, what does that mean? Expertise, authority, and trust. This is where Google's wanting to qualify and not just, you know, rank spam anymore, and like wanting to like make sure that the content that is served in the SERP to their users is you know, has some good reference citations around them. The authors are recognized expert in their field, and they can be able to see that, and we can, as SEOs, can be able to advise like how best to write this, to be able to add citations to this, and to be able to have like author pages with schema that shows a relationship between the content and their expertise. So those kinds of wonderful like opinion pieces was something that we were seeing populating in Google Discover. But it's so interesting that it's like 70 seconds old and 710 days old. Like again, like I'm only just seeing this, and I think this is something that has gone up on Twitter on the 22nd of December. Sorry, I had to click it. I've gone to the tweet, and I might just like even write a comment on this afterwards, just be like, hey Valentin Pletzer, we were talking about your tweet in our SEO meetup, you know, first post of 2021. Like would love to be able to know more about like what this actually looked like from what you're saying. So yeah, really interesting.
So definitely talk to Valentine. Like, you know, he is like obsessed with Discover. So like I think he even has like a running list of like a sheet with like the different intent classification and different category classifications on Google Discover, because they kind of like, you know, if you like go into Google Discover and try to send a feedback for a post, they will kind of have all this information that kind of gets sent back to Google, which kind of shows you the category that that particular post is, like, you know, like categorized as internally and all those things. So definitely, like, you know, check out Valentine's like Twitter history. You'll kind of see all this great information about Google Discover.
That's awesome. I think I'm already following him, but I must have missed that because I think on the 22nd of December, I was very much wanting to finish up my work just so that I could have a couple of days of Christmas with the family. But if you're on Twitter, definitely go and follow Valentin. I completely agree, Saijo. Yeah, he is absolutely awesome. And of course, Peter is. So Peter is a really technical SEO on JB Hi-Fi. So their PDP went into Discover during the PlayStation 5 launch on JB Hi-Fi, just because it was new and matched sudden urge in search intent. But I also think that you know, Peter and his team has done a really great job of informing what good content means for JB Hi-Fi's website. So no doubt that would have really helped things, in addition to JB Hi-Fi being a wonderful, massive authority on gaming in Australia. That is awesome. All right. Well, I'm just mindful of the time. It's 7:24, and I think maybe let's finish up with Google Analytics 4. I know that the next one is 2020 December core update by Kevin Indig, as well as Google Analytics 4. I'll let you pick. Which one would you like to talk about? Google Analytics 4 or the algorithm update on December 3rd?
I think like the algo update on December because
Yeah.
like the thing with Analytics 4 is I've set up Analytics 4 for most of this like client sites and for my sites, but I haven't really like jumped into it because uh, the Universal Analytics is still available and I'm kind of comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I still just look at that while the other one is sitting and collecting data. Hopefully, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just again, not again, sorry. Christina Azarenko, who's a good friend, has written a really, really good post about that. That's not necessarily like linked here, but I might just link it in the chat
Yeah,
after.
she's done a few different like posts about GFO, like all good stuff.
Yeah. So if you're interested in Google Analytics 4 and setting that up on your website, she's provided a really great resource that I'll make sure that is linked after this. But yes, Google algorithm updates. Let's get into it. This is a post by Kevin Indig, who is now the head of technical SEO at Shopify, which I'm so excited that he's actually joined the ranks of Shopify. I can only expect even more great things as Kevin is. Kevin actually really helped me to understand internal links on such a more granular level when I was in my baby years of being an SEO. So I'm really excited that he's still blogging on his personal website. But do you want to like talk about this, because I think as the news guy, this was something that a lot of people were scratching their heads about.
As the news guy. So I think like Kevin goes into like, definitely go check out his post. Like, he goes into a deep dive. He kind of talks about like, things like if this kind of impacted M dot sites specifically, like was there a specific part of it that kind of impacted those sites and like all those things. So I would definitely recommend going and reading. So like for me, like for the last few core updates, it's really hard to kind of see like what sort of impact it had, if it had a specific impact on certain industries and all that, because I think Google is definitely making it harder to kind of uh, what do you say, like try to hack what they've done, try to understand what changed it. So they make it really hard, I think, because previously when update used to come, like for example, Penguin, we knew was about links. People were analyzing sites, they figured out this is specifically about links. Panda, people were able to figure out that was specifically about content primarily, right? Whereas updates these days, it's so hard to figure out because I think Google is like, really trying to make it as hard as possible to figure out, if that is impacting a certain type of sites or a certain category of sites or a certain ranking factor has been like tweaked. So I think going forward, like that will kind of be the case because they really don't want you to kind of figure out what are the things that make Google tick. But
Yeah.
analysis like this and like the one from Lily Ray does give you some insights, but it's not like a smoking gun that used to be the case with Panda and Penguin and all those.
Yeah, I think I've had a couple of like my client sites that have seen that. I've also had some messages from some people from LinkedIn reach out and basically say like, look, can you have a look at my site? Can you give me a bit of information about that? It's a really interesting one because the ones that I'm going in and looking at just the URLs and looking at ones like I've seen like on one of my clients, we've lost up to like 60% of traffic, and it was literally like you saw that nice little increase, and then it was literally like boom, it just lost 60%, pretty much like a terrorist dynamic. Terrace dynamic is like, in Baroque music where it's just like that, and then it goes from loud to soft. Sorry, violin nerd. But like, what was really interesting about that was trying to like work back from that and look at the content and try and qualify. Okay, we know that this is a YMYL site. We've been pushing to have the expertise to be related to this for ages. Is this hopefully something that we can, we can basically go back and say like, yeah, not like an "I told you so," because that's not nice. But at the same time, like, I think for me, and I don't think I really fully understand this one. I think sometimes like we can see like, certain sections like, be seen, and just with what I've seen, like I think I'm still scratching my head a little bit on this one to be able to like give a fully qualified answer. But what we're trying to do is, at least with all the things that Google has said, particularly about YMYL sites, your money, your life. So that looks at like finance sites with like health sites, and things that are like, change like your health or your money, or things that might, if you were to get bad information, be potentially really, really harmful to you. This is where we're saying like, actually, this is really important. The Google quality guidelines, if you haven't read it, it's a wonderful resource. I think everybody actually should read that, because it's the only thing that Google's really released that they use to manually review and qualify content. I don't think they're like an EAT score, but they do cite in there that they have like a page score. So I think before I keep going on, because I could talk a little bit at length about EAT. What's your experience been of the Google algorithm update, Saijo?
So one thing about the page, like the Google quality guidelines, don't try to read it. It's like 180 pages. Jennifer's like, I think she has like a comparison post that she does every time it gets updated. So the SEM post, I think, is the website. So you can go there and kind of like, just go through that. It's probably save you a lot of time, and you get all the important bits anyways.
Yeah. Or you can follow people on Twitter. I think so. Towards the end of last year, there was an update to the user quality guidelines, which I'm one of the nerds that's read it. There's like 135 pages, and because like I have like I have the wonderful job, and I don't say that with anything behind it other than pure joy of helping to train the teams. Here at Studio Hawk. And I think having as many people read and understand what this is, and maybe consider like a page quality and how to assess this, I think it's really important to know where to start. They have really great examples in there. Sorry, it's really picking up absolutely everything. Sorry, mate.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
I'll change it for the next one. Like, I think it's because like the speakers are very close to the trackpad. So I should use a separate speaker for that.
Yeah, no, that's all good. But that one really, I train the teams, and I get a lot of questions about what this actually looks like. And again, if you were hit by the Google algorithm update, just as a blanket rule, have a look at the pages that were updated. I think Danny Sullivan tweeted out, I think it was Danny, tweeted out and said that this was like a URL by URL. It affects the pages that are indexed. So if there's already content out there that has been indexed that has been affected, it's probably that they have looked at the result and thought, this is probably not the result that should be served for this query. And again, like that, just that in itself is a bit of like an indicator of like, how to go through and assess the impact on your site. So Is there a link to that document? Yeah, I'll find that, and again with Christina Azarenko's GA4, I'll also make sure that's linked here as well, Sue. Yeah, because it's a wonderful resource, and it does give you some really good examples of what we're looking at. Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. It's been a long day. But I think going back and looking at the pages that were affected, if you can see like in Search Console or any of like the wonderful tools like Rank Ranger, SEMrush, Ahrefs that you're seeing like the keyword drop off, have a look at that content, have a look at what now does rank in there as a way of trying to figure out what's going on. If you are a YMYL site, that, again, news, finance, shopping, so like e-commerce, that would affect, like in medical sites, health, safety, and more sort of things like that again could help or harm people. Poppy, shh, sorry. You might be further scrutinized by Google because they're really wanting to make sure that they're serving the best content for you. So again, I'll make sure that that's linked. That it gives you a really good qualified information for it. Otherwise, if you want, have a chat with myself or with Saijo after this to be able to do it. I actually got like a couple of like really good checklists that just go through like some really basic questions, like with actually like looking at the authors that are actually producing the content on your site. So a really quick way to check. Sorry, Saijo, I've been talking quite a lot.
No, it's all good.
Thank you. A quick way to check is look at the author that is actually producing the content, and then also include their profession. So say, for example, look at Steve Smith, chiropractor, or Steve Smith, personal injury lawyer. If they appear on Google, then Google understands that Steve Smith is actually the expert in his profession, and it does have a really good understanding of who he is, which is great. So if he's writing a bunch of content on your website and there is no mention that Steve actually did write that content, that's a really, really great, easy way of associating his expertise with the content that's on your website. So again, folks, like have a look at your pages, do some really, really quick little easy tests. And if you want to know more, again, reach out to either myself or to Saijo. We can be able to help unpack this for you after the conversation. Google EAT. Yes, sorry. Again, I talked at length about EAT. That's just again, I don't really know what exactly what it is. I don't think anyone really knows what the result of a broad core algorithm update, but that's just one of the sites, actually a few sites that I saw that I could really, really see some strong correlations to that. So I don't know if that's exactly what it's about. Or yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of like my best guess so far.
Cool. And I think like with this update, a couple of sites that I've looked at, they kind of saw an initial drop and then like a sharp increase, and then it kind of flattened out, and like total, yeah. So
really?
when it kind of first was announced, there was a big drop.
Yeah,
not a big drop, but a reasonably big drop.
Yeah.
And then it kind of shot straight up. So it kind of went the traffic was more than what it used to be.
Yeah.
And then it kind of flattened out and it settled maybe 5 to 10% less, I guess.
That's really interesting. I saw on the 18th of December, Marie Haynes was, I think had been tweeted about this because, she's like one of the wonderful, people that covers Google algorithm updates. And I think on the 18th, there was other people that were seeing something really, really similar to that. but I've never seen. I haven't seen one in the wild myself. What did you see? Like, was the content that actually was impacted by that?
So it was like, couple of pages on the site. So there was one which was like a generator kind of thing. So it's like a calculator kind of thing.
Oh,
And
okay.
that one, like, yeah, like initially there was a big drop, and that kind of drives about like close to 40% of the traffic on that site. And yeah, for that one, like that page just like initially kind of went down, then shot straight up, and then yeah.
Yeah, right.
So the same thing kind of happened on another site as well. Like a couple of top performing posts on that, it was the same thing. Kind of, drop and then kind of went up and then steady back kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
So not all sites were like that, and not all pages on the sites were like that as well. It was like for one site, it was just a one page, which was like, the best page on that side, and the other one, couple of top performing pages. So again, it's kind of hard because like,
Yeah.
that site kind of covers a specific topic, so it's not the entire site, but just that page. So yeah, it's kind of weird. So it's kind of hard to kind of get a sense of like, why the algorithm works that way compared to like, a few years ago where it was like more apparent on why like algorithm might have impacted the ranking
Yeah.
on a specific site, whereas now each page is kind of behave differently, I guess.
Yeah, it almost sounds like they rolled out a change, and then maybe like on the 10th or the 18th or something like that, they rolled out another change. Maybe like the
Yeah,
algorithm
so
was rolled out in
I don't
part.
think, yeah, I don't think that is just like, this time. Like it has happened before as well. So once they roll out, I think they like tweak it for a while to kind of get it right, maybe. So you've kind of
Yeah,
seen this like, up and down kind of thing before as well.
yeah. I think because like they do. And again, like I don't know because like I'm not on the inside of Google, and I have no idea how this stuff works. But I know that they do a lot of extensive testing before they push these out live, and I've just have like Marie Haynes's words in my head, like if anyone's thinking that if Google rolls out an algorithm update and it was like, oh, that was really, really bad, we'll roll it back. I don't think that that's ever happened. And I've just got like her words in my head at the moment because again, she's got a wonderful podcast that I love to listen to. I love passive media that I can kind of consume on my way to work. Search News you can use. Another wonderful shout out to another content creator in addition to Tdlr marketing. And she just kind of like talks at length about like Google algorithm updates. And she's been like, like a warrior in the forums, since the days of when Glenn Gabe and Matt Cutts were sort of, warring with each other. Well, not warring, but like conversing with each other about, different changes and things like that. When Google Panda and Penguin sort of was rolling out in the early days, way before I was an SEO and knowing what this stuff is about. So I lean on the experts that have been around for 20 plus years, and like yourself too, Saijo, you've been doing this for decades as well, about this sort of stuff because I think having a good understanding of the past is a good way of being able to see like what we can expect from the future. So that's just why I think that it might have been rolled out in parts, but as to what exactly it is, I don't know. I can only see what I can see from the pages and kind of like work backwards.
Yeah,
like everyone
I
else.
think like, yeah. And I think like, over time, like, it's going to get more harder to kind of, figure out what these updates are about, because I don't think it'll be about just one thing anymore. I think gone are those days. It'll kind of be a mix of a lot of different things, and we can never be 100% on what those things are.
Yeah. You're so right. You're so right, and this is what makes you brilliant. John Muir tweeted out the Little Prince, like that book, a quote of that to Dr. Marie Haynes, and the quote was something exactly what you said, and super cryptic. But it was like the changes that are the most important are the ones that are invisible to us. Or some reiterate. I've probably bastardized the quote because I can't remember exactly. But she was kind of like asking a little bit more about the algorithm update and what it could look like, and that's what he replied with. So if this isn't something that we have been traditionally measuring, gosh, there are so many different signals that we look at as marketers and SEOs. I think that's a really, really good point that you made. There might be things that we aren't measuring, and we don't have tools to measure that this algorithm update is influencing. So super awesome stuff. I think that's a really great place to kind of like bookmark it here. Saijo, George, you are a phenomenal human, and I have loved doing SEO
Right
Meetup
back at you.
as co-hosts of this wonderful venture. How can people find you after this?
I hope they don't.
Sorry, online.
Yeah, online, like Saijo George. So that is my Twitter handle, SAIJOGEORGE. You can Google me. Like, I don't have a blog per se, like, but tldrmarketing.com is probably where like you can find all these updates that I talk about.
Absolutely. Subscribe to the newsletter, TLDR,
Yes,
or
subscribe to the
too long
newsletter.
and didn't read.
Marketing.
I've actually, I say that now in my everyday vernacular. I say to people like, TDLR. And then I get like a blank face. Like,
TLDR. It's not TDLR.
oh, well,
It's TLDR.
see, I even get it wrong. So that's probably why I get so many like people being like, what are you talking about? I'm just like, too long, didn't read. Can you just like, shorten, give me a synopsis of what you're trying to say? Very, very rudely sometimes. I apologize to my very understanding partner. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, please reach out to Saijo after this. Subscribe to the newsletter. It gets sent to your inbox. And it gives you some really fantastic, qualified, curated information about what is happening around the web from experts, from Google, and from things that are happening. And if you want to find me, this is my Twitter handle, Nick Ranger SEO. I'm on LinkedIn, Nick Ranger, or you can actually just reach out to me via Studio Hawk and just be like, hey, I want to chat to Nick, and they will do a good job of getting us in touch with one another. So thank you so much. I wish I had some music just to kind of like start to like play out the end thing, but have a wonderful 2021. Be safe, be smart, and all the best with optimizing your sites.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.